Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Emmy nominee Hannah Einbinder of Hacks. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Now, I usually like to start this off by asking people, since this is a SAG audience, how they got their SAG card, but your answer might be the show you're on now, or did you have a SAG card before Hacks?
It is the show I'm on now. Yes, it's true. It's true. I think I said, like, I did my buddy Mikey's movie, North Hollywood. I had like 2 lines in it before this. But other than that, this is, I think, the ticket
Wow.
for me. Yeah.
I mean, what a great first job, though.
Ridiculous and unimaginable, and could not have asked for more ever.
Actually, before we get to Hacks, I want to go back to the beginning. When did you first realize you had a talent for performing and you wanted to pursue stand-up comedy?
Well, I've always loved comedy, but I never imagined that I would really do it myself until when I was in college. I was talking to someone and they told me that I was funny and that I should try out for the improv team at school. And I did, and I started doing that. And I wasn't great at it. I think improv demands sort of like mental freedom that I, as a chronic overthinker, don't really have. I feel more comfortable with it now after years of being on stage by myself. But at the time, it was pretty tough, and I wasn't really loving improv. But then Nicole Byer, who's a great comedian, I'm sure everyone knows, she came to my school and she asked if anyone from the team wanted to open for her. And so I volunteered, and that was my first time doing stand-up, and I just loved it. And I never put the mic down since.
Your first time doing stand-up was opening for Nicole Byer, probably in front of a big audience too.
Nothing about my my artistic life makes any sense at all. Truly not one thing.
I mean, I'm genuinely in awe of anyone who can do stand-up. I think it's the most terrifying thing. And it sounds like you just did it trial by fire.
I did. I prefer to just go right in, honestly, with all things. Just bite the bullet.
Well, how long have you been doing it now?
Since about 2017.
Okay, so you've had time to develop your style and grow.
A little bit, yeah. I try. I hope I am.
I mean, but like the thing that always makes my palms sweaty is thinking about dealing with hecklers. Like, have you had to do that?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my favorite heckles was I got to the end of my set and I said something along the lines of like, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with this. And some man yelled out from the crowd, "Thank God." And I just, it happened to me so early on, and I didn't know what to really do with it. So I just kind of rolled. It was so sad. Like the crowd felt so bad that he did it. And I felt so bad, and I ran off, I sort of like got through my set and went right into the green room and just started sobbing. And a friend of mine, a comic named Handren CV, he hand rolls his cigarettes, and he was waiting there, and I was just sobbing. And I said, can you roll me one of those? And that is the time. If you're going to smoke a hand rolled cigarette, it's after a crisis, I think, after a pretty scary thing. But that's just one of many, since then I kind of I should never say that I enjoy the challenge, because then of course anyone seeing this will be like, you told me to do this, and come to a show and yell at me. But it's sometimes an opportunity to take the show to a place that is exciting, and I don't know, kind of like put some random man in his place, which I'm always for.
Yeah, I was going to say, of course, it was a guy who did this.
Yeah.
The least surprised face I can make. I bet right now he's a big fan of Hacks, because everybody is in love with this show. So
Thanks. That's so nice.
This is one of those shows that when it premiered earlier this year, everyone was instantly talking about it. It didn't take time to find an audience. Out of the gate, people were in love with it. And I'm sort of curious how you first became aware of the project and what the casting process was like.
I got the audition, in my inbox, in my email. And I went in person for my first audition, and then the world changed, and my callback was on Zoom. And then through a glass wall, I did a screen test with Miss Jean. And I became aware of it, I think last May. And we started shooting in November. So it was kind of up in the air for a little bit between, casting and shooting, but I was immediately in love with it too. I read the first page and I laughed, and I felt, the weight of the work itself. And it was such a dream, right off the bat.
How much did you know about Ava going in? Because I don't know how many scripts they had that you could read, or if they sort of told you the amazing arc she was going to go on in just one season.
Yeah, I had probably one or two scripts, and I had a ton of great chats with Paul, Jen, and Lucia that just, made me feel closer to Ava. And to me, I feel like she's so vivid, even in the first episode, that there was so much to work with that was already on the page, thanks to, our beautiful, gracious creators. So.
It's very rare, maybe not so much anymore, but I feel it's such an achievement to have one female character on a show who is so dynamic and so complex and so thought out. And this has at least two. I would actually venture to say there's even more than that. If I were you, which I would never, like I said, I would never get up and do stand-up. I would want this role so bad. You know what I mean? And I don't know how you sort of, but you can't. You can't let them know how badly you want it. You can't get wrapped up in things like that. How did you sort of, keep yourself earthbound during all this?
I don't know that I did keep myself earthbound during all of it, because when I read Ava, I was immediately, it is so rare for me, in my experience, to come across a character, a female character specifically, that feels like someone that I know or someone that I identify with. So reading her, I was just so struck by how unique she was compared to the things that I was reading. I became obsessed with it. I really left, my feet, left the floor when I read the first script, because also, the pandemic sort of killed stand-up there for the moment. And so, I just was so just the process of auditioning and engaging with this material and thinking in her voice and thinking about the jokes that Ava would write or naturally say, or any of these things, was my only creative outlet at the time. And so I was desperate for it. And I really, really, really was just grateful to even be engaging with the material, even if nothing came of it, because it was such good comedy, and engaging with good comedy was not something that I was able to really do other than, listening to albums and things like that, and talking to comedians, and, but just a piece of art that I could, get my hands on and engage with was such a blessing. And I was so desperate for it. I cannot stress enough how.
That sounds like such a healthy attitude, like a healthy approach to just be like, you get to do it for the moment. You get to engage this character. Have you always had, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to harp on this, but you're very young. Have you always had that good of a sense of self? Because, I know people who are twice your age who still get so deeply in their heads about auditions.
Oh, well, I'm lucky to have, I'm incredibly privileged to have another outlet. I mean, at the time, of course, I did not have an outlet, but auditioning has been for me thus far, or was before Hacks, I should say, another creative outlet. But I was able to, go on stage every night and do comedy. Whereas I think, that is a privilege of mine. There are a ton of actors who, depend on auditions and a gig to be able to engage with their work, and that's something that makes it. I assume there's just a ton more pressure on that, which is totally understandable. So I just feel like because I have this other thing, because I am a stand-up comic, I'm able to look at it through the lens of just another sort of means of expression for me. And yeah, I think that's maybe.
No, I mean, that's what a lot of people say is like, have other things in your life so that it's not just this one thing. But you must be pretty good at auditioning. I mean, have you done it much?
I got to tell you, Hacks was my first callback ever. Never got a callback before Hacks.
Just takes one.
Yeah, I guess so. Really, I've heard this a lot, and I believe it to be true that what is right for you is right for you. I was incredibly fortunate and so lucky and privileged that, I mean, all of these factors lined up. Every little thing was aligned for me to be, in the right place at the right time for a gig like this. And so that's, something that I'm incredibly grateful for. But, I did not, I didn't, and frankly, I think it's connected to the fact that there were, I was going for parts of women that I didn't really 100% identify with, or and I believe that great actors can put themselves in the shoes of anyone, but I don't know, maybe I just was only able to I guess I just it spoke to me so much, and so I think that's the explanation as to why a novice could come in and do it.
I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but the character of Ava, when the show started, there were so many people who instantly identified with her. Maybe that's just because I know a lot of female TV writers, but, and people would tease me because like, this is the stupidest thing ever, but like one of my big fears is getting canceled on Twitter. Yeah, like I don't even have that many followers. It's not like, I would say anything, but like I so related when that, as we were watching, I noticed actually you're not on Twitter. So maybe you do have that fear.
I'm not on Twitter because it makes me really sad. And I'm also very sensitive. And I know that I know that people on the internet, I have such low self-esteem that if I read something, really negative, I'm just like, they're right. Like I just sort of melt down. So I've decided to step away for my own well-being.
That's so great. Honestly, John Ronson wrote this book called So You've Been Publicly Shamed. Yeah. And it talks about like people who got canceled on Twitter and like eight hours later, their lives were over. And I think that that's just stuck in the back of my mind somewhere every time I think about sending a tweet.
Yeah, I love John Ronson. That book is, yeah, I mean, it's a great read for anyone on Twitter who feels upset by the discourse generally. I think it would do I think it's a great read for those purposes. Yeah.
So it sounds like when it comes to social media, you're much healthier than Ava. But did you have to do any other kind of special preparation or research to play the role?
Luckily, I think Paul Lucia and Jen and I come from a similar world. They're all comedians. They've all done stand-up at one point. Paul does stand-up still. They've done sketch. They've all been live performers. And so because we come from that similar world, it felt like I had been doing research kind of like my entire, for the duration of my pursuit of comedy. So it was really there was a lot for me to pull from both my life and the lives of friends of mine and really anybody that I know kind of around the LA comedy scene. So,
I mean, obviously so much of the show hinges on the dynamic between Deborah and Ava. And you have such amazing chemistry with Jean Smart. I mean, part of that I just think that is got to be natural when you walk in the room. Did that sort of develop naturally? Like even when you were testing through a pane of glass?
It was instant. It was so quick and swift. And I think you're right. There's, you cannot produce that. You can't bottle it. It just occurs in nature. And it certainly did with Jean and I. And to this day, it just feels like, I really feel like being able to know Jean and interact with her and to love her has been, it's very high up on the list of the great things that this gig has brought into my life. She's really everything you'd hope that she is,
I mean, initially, Ava starts out not terribly impressed by Deborah, but I would think working opposite Jean Smart, I don't think I could speak at least for the first week. Was it intimidating at all?
I mean, the thing about Jean is that she doesn't allow anyone to be intimidated by her because she is so generous and loving, and she connects with so many so easily. It is such a beautiful skill that she has. And so before you even get to be nervous, she comes over and she talks to you and she, makes you laugh and your shoulders kind of drop and you feel comfortable. So yes, I am, I don't think the word is intimidated, but I am certainly in awe of and respectful of her work and who she is and all of those things.
I mean, honestly, the entire cast is so good. And you have all these great scenes with like Caitlin Olsen and Paul W. Downs, who is also your boss. So that must be strange. And you're acting with like legends like Jefferson Mays.
Oh my God. Jefferson Mays, wow. And Caitlin Olsen, who is just one of the great comedians of our time, frankly. I cannot just, sometimes I would be shooting with Caitlin or Jefferson and I would just like walk out of my body and look at this person doing something before my eyes that it is so natural and unique to them and so deeply funny and such a beautiful choice. I mean, Caitlin, there was this one scene where we're in the axe throwing bar and she improvised, it's a very heavy scene because Ava finds out that DJ, Caitlin's character, has been hiring paparazzi to take bad photos of Deborah to sell, to make money off of the photos. And Ava finds that out. And to break the tension, Caitlin comes back in and she joins the scene and she's kind of like, what are you guys talking about? And, she goes to she chugs a margarita. She's like, let's drink. And she looks at me and she just goes, time me, and starts chugging. And I, of course, butcher the moment because it's just it is so perfect when she does it. But I I am trying so hard not to lose it because she's actually drinking it and we're in the shot together. And so I cannot, for the sake of her, chugging this entire cup of what I think is in actuality lemonade, I cannot break, but I so desperately wanted to laugh. And I just will never forget watching Caitlin do that because I wasn't expecting it. And of course, she's such a pro. She did it probably 3 more times with a full glass of lemonade. Watching her and Jefferson Mays, who was in episode 2, The Antique Dealer, his process is so interesting to watch. He's really, Tony Award winner, he's a theater guy and it shows, and he's just so talented and so committed in a way that I feel I learned from after working with him. He's just fabulous.
Oh my God. And your mom is played by Jane Addams, who's a genius. Seriously, the cast of the show is just insane.
Yeah, Jane Addams is, oh my gosh, she's fantastic. She's so, and she did a ton of, she really was someone who, again, was so committed to her character and would just, after the scene on paper was done, would go and go and go. And I would come in to watch her, run through it. And it just was such a gift to watch everyone, truly. Such a gift.
I mean, or I should say, we already knew you were a gifted comedian, but Ava's character actually really has to go to some dark places, especially near the end of the season with her father being sick. What for you ended up being the most challenging scene or the most challenging episode? Because there's a lot of emotional labor in those last couple eps.
Yeah. I think the fight with between Ava and Deborah in episode 10, just a blowout fight. Barely any moments of, there's like maybe a joke in it. But other than that, it's pretty toxic, that energy. It's these two people who have made so much progress, just throwing it all away. And I'm having to look at Jean and yell at her and insult her. And I realize that it is, a character, but I just it was so hard for me to get through it because I just kept, it was so emotional. And that scene was one of the harder things to do. I felt kind of like hungover from it.
It's hard to watch, and I mean that in the most complimentary way, because you care so much about these characters. I'm like, no, they're fighting.
Totally. It's like a breakup, and it's just tragic, and it killed me to do. And the stuff with Ava's dad, the funeral stuff was hard. The day of the wake was hard. All of that stuff was really, really, really tough. And I never really imagined that I would have the ability to really like jump inside not only a different person, like to jump inside of Ava but to like really feel her pain and see the pain on Jane's face and internalize it and put myself truly and actually in a different, my body, but a different, I guess, soul with these actors. It's like a weird, almost like meditate. It's almost meditative. Like it just felt like kind of like, I don't know, leaving my body a little bit. I know that sounds strange. I can't believe I'm saying that. But.
No, I actually know exactly what you're saying, and I'm a terrible actor. But I know, what that feels like in the moment.
Totally.
And that actually, I was going to say, I feel like everyone can relate to the show, whether they're, a writer or even a woman. There are just so many universal truths in it. Although I think my favorite episode is 1.69 million, because it really tackles, the misogyny and sexism in the comedy world. I love when Deborah makes that offer, it cuts to the faces of the women in the audience, kind of reacting to that. It says so much. How much of that resonates with you, as a female stand-up, and how have you kept yourself moving forward in an environment that, can be really challenging?
I feel specifically, just speaking for myself, that, I have been so incredibly privileged, and I know so many of my female peers who came up, maybe like 2, 3, 4 and beyond years earlier, where it was a different scene. I was privileged to come up in Los Angeles, where there is a big alternative scene that has a lot of queer people and people of color and women. I was lucky to grow in that scene and to be surrounded by people who are so incredibly funny and talented and safe. I understand that stand-up comedy specifically is a patriarchal institution. There's a lot of like fraternity about it. And it makes me sad sometimes, and it has in the past. And, I, as a woman, have to prove it so much more than my male counterparts. We all do. And I think to varying degrees based on various factors. But, I'm hopeful, because I think we've come a long way, and we still have a really long way to go. And that's the important part of all of this. But I do feel lucky to have found a community in the LA scene that feels different from all of the things that we have always known about stand-up comedians, stand-up comedy, and especially that very male-dominated world,
And obviously, the show has already been picked up for a second season. I don't know if you've started shooting yet, if they've even written scripts.
Haven't started shooting yet. Just waiting on schedules, but I think we might start up pretty soon.
Okay. Do you know what's in store? Can you give us any hints for season 2?
Absolutely nothing. I promise you. I know nothing. I am desperate to know as well. I kind of have been texting Paul Gianlucia being like, so let's, we got an arc, we got a blue sky, we got anything? I'm seriously waiting. It's truly, I'm with you 100%. So I can't wait though.
I can't wait either. I am so excited to see what happens next. Congratulations again on the Emmy nomination. Such a fantastic show. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I just want to thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow performers today.
Oh, thanks, Jenelle. I appreciate it.